synopsis of comments on the YouTube channel, mine, that are on topic and may get to a point. An assertion. Tekkit Realms YouTube Unsolved series, doing a video on would you like to join the Legion and a insignia as an ARG, was found by his viewers on his Discord server. And then someone commented, most of them would fail doing encryption by rot13. Where does that come from? Tekkit Realms said at one point a page was encrypted in base64. Now, let's review. None of the information, except on Discord apparently, was ever released about where he got all this from. The claim is that his viewers found this. The only information I found that he was willing to provide was that he was doing this to get some clicks that week, and that's it. He's pretty much dropped it, so it's not a subject. But let's explore what base64 is. It's how systems code or encode, not encrypt, a file that won't work on the system. A very good example of this is if you're looking at a program and you're trying to write it. You don't write it by writing binary bits to a memory and then viewing them, although that's possible. What you end up with is a file that has a bunch of bang splats and symbols and missing errors, and it might include what appears to be carriage returns, line feeds, and cursor movements, which make it to where it does all sorts of janky stuff on the screen. You could convert it to hexadecimal, and now you've encoded it in a text mode you can read. An email can do the same thing with in fact does exactly this, by sending you an attachment of, let's say, a GIF file or a JPEG. It converts it to describing what the file is and then reconstructing it. It has to do it faithfully, and it has to include whatever was in the file to be considered a true attachment. But if you were to look at the EML file itself, it says, a bunch of codes in there, and then at one point it'll say octet stream, blah, 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 or whatever, and it will put up the information on basically instructions to the computer on how to rebuild the file into where it's a literal perfect copy of it. And it has to be a perfect copy because nobody would put up with anything better, or anything less, excuse me. It's not encrypted, but if you're looking at it, you don't know what it is. But if you know it's an EML file, you can run it through a program that says, oh yeah, it's an attachment with a picture in it, or it could be a piece of software, a program, an active running program. But when it's turned into this, it's turned into pure text. Email systems, virtually all of them started off being text only. They were limited to printable characters and maybe some unprintable characters that were used for formatting, like tab and stuff, which is subject to interpretation. Obviously, this wouldn't be able to carry a file that has a valid entry of the value of 0, like a black JPEG or a black GIF specifically. So, unless he's truly ignorant, a base64 page, web page, just means that it's using code that normally won't display in international ASCII, I think it's how it's spelled, ASCII format. I could be wrong about that. And it would be putting up extended character sets or whatever, or it might have included using that somewhere in it, not to encrypt anything, but because it was showing you a picture or a video. The URL on your YouTube videos uses a base something system that uses upper and lowercase characters and numbers. 26 letters of the alphabet times 2, that's a fairly large number. And the rest of it works up to, base64. It encodes base64 binary as upper and lowercase characters, some symbols, and numbers. Because that's what you have to do. If you do just numbers and upper and lowercase letters, which it can easily distinguish and not have any errors, it has a good signal to noise ratio, a lot like one of my videos recently, that's only, let's say 62 characters, or I could be wrong. So it has to use a couple of symbols or something to do the rest, and using space is looked down on, but you can still use it. Anything that's printable that's not ambiguous, that the computer won't have the ability to misinterpret in a long string of data. That could be a music file or just the address for it, because that works. If you're not aware of what base64 does, each character, all by itself, is able to hold a value of 0 through 64. That's a value 0 through 16, 3264. That means it's doing 6 bits out of the data. Wait a minute, characters are supposed to be 8-bit. Yeah, but you're limited in this set to these non-ambiguous ways of doing it. The other 2 bits are spread out over the next several individual characters to get you up to a round number. This is a whole math thing for somebody else to do. A web page can, because of recent methodology, include, for instance, you may have seen it, there's something called WebP. What it's sending you is basically the equivalent to a attachment embedded in the page. Normal web pages have a link in them that says ahref or whatever, or img or whatever, to go to another page or to load up an inline image. Look up the image data. And what it does is it says, look for this file adjacent or right next to where the web page is on the file system, and grab the file and put it right here. And it can center it, resize it, all sorts of crap. But a recent thing has been encoding it into the page itself so it's part of the web page, just like an email. Well, it's not recent. That's been around a long time. Compiled help file, something dark side. File formats existed where you take an entire page and compact it into one file. A web page can contain dozens of files. If you did that with a page that had video, it would take a long time because it would literally turn a video that took up 10 megabytes into something that took up 20 megabytes or more. And it would stick it into the page and save it that way. You had the option of saying no to that and just saving it with the file. Web page complete, single file. Not something you want to edit. Don't do that. So now you understand why this kind of thing might have freaked him out, because it would say this may take a long time. And if somebody does the page compaction correctly, I think that's the correct word, it grabs the page so you can get the formatting and read the text, and then if it has anything to embed, it takes longer. Or it could just stream the video and just encode just the simple pictures like GIFs or other easily compressible formats. But because Tekkit Realm did not, I'm sorry, the first time I tried to do this, he wasn't being clear what he was talking about. And he said it's encrypted in base64. That didn't make any sense because encryption starts at 128 bits, 256 bits. Standard for encryption if you have an encrypted page. In fact, if it says HTTPS in your address bar, it should say more than 1024-bit encryption. So something 64-bit encrypted would be like, are you shitting me? You're using not weak encryption, but it's a joke. By the way, the rot13 joke is somebody else's, but it does date me and show how old I am. rot13 means that you fake cipher the alphabet by moving all the characters 13 to the right. If you do it again to your encrypted file, it unscrambles it. It's just rotating the characters around. There's also another one called rot9 or rot10, and it's for rotating the numbers. And there's another variation of this that does exactly rot23, which rotates there's another version of it that rotates the entire ASCII alphabet by a specific number of marks just using the ASCII characters. And it makes an unreadable mess out of it, but it is easily decoded. The idea is it just scrambles it up so you can get past word filters on like image boards or on YouTube titles. You can find video titles of forbidden subjects that have simply had their code rotated. Not that I'm suggesting you go off and do that. It's even worse if you're doing other languages that are still acceptable under ISO formats and extended character sets. Really, there's a bunch of Japanese characters that can get scrambled, and you can hide all sorts of things on YouTube and on the internet in general. But that's an entire rabbit hole you don't want to go into. No, I'm really not kidding. You will find so much random stuff, and most of it's just jokes to see, saw you do that. You may not find anything. Then again, I've been thinking of doing it. And yes, you can get a plugin that will automatically unencode, unencrypt, or unscramble. It's just scrambling it. The title of a video that's in rot13 or whatever. It's a plugin. I don't use it. It doesn't work very reliably. And again, many web pages are using the mysterious 64-bit encoding encryption, which means it won't do that properly. It'll screw it up immediately. Anyway, just thought I'd put this up here because it's the only response I've had on the channel that's a response back in the last 24 hours. So, again, Tekkit Realm, he's gone on to other things. He's not going to respond, so I don't expect him to. And the assertion that this came from his quote-unquote fan base giving him the idea to look it up, that sounds like him. Does that mean that he's not guilty of refusing to provide his links? Yeah, because he's just doing spook stories at night. He doesn't care. And again, any of you who are still into this, would you like to join the Legion as being a real thing? You need a hobby. Please find one. Thanks for watching. Have a good day. Good luck.